For the New York Mets, they dropped 2 of 3 to the Philadelphia Phillies, but there is some other concerning news regarding their star shortstop, and we will sure to be talking about all of that in episode number 41 of the Queen's Connection. I'm your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host, Corne Hogavine. What's your vibe check after that series?
Well, uh, luckily the Braves lost yesterday. That helps a little bit, but yeah, it's going to be a tough road. Obviously, we are still right in there. We aren't out of it, but the Phillies and Mets, I think they both played a good series. Both showed good pitching. So beating them next weekend won't be easy. And then after that, we just don't have a really easy schedule. I think we have the toughest one of all the competitors. So yeah, and then with Lindor, you hope that he won't lose much time because obviously we could use him. So a little bit concerning, I would say.
Yeah, I have thoughts on the Lindor thing. I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But we'll talk about the games here to start things, and I guess maybe we could do an overall a picture, perhaps, because really in this series, the Mets got good starting pitching. Obviously, Quintana on Friday. I thought Severino pitched a decent game on Saturday. There was just a couple mistakes on his part that kind of led to the momentum swings in that game. And then David Peterson was awesome again on Sunday. So I think the series is kind of basically what we've seen from the Mets so far in this month of September. Where they get really good starting pitching. There's a game or two when the offense looks really stellar, like they did on Friday. They put up the 11 runs, the couple of home runs. They had the 6 running as well. But then basically after Colby Allard came out of the game, who made the spot start for the Phillies on Saturday, the offense didn't do a whole lot the rest of the way. Obviously, only scoring the 1 run in the finale on Sunday on the Tyrone Taylor home run. That maybe it kind of felt like with the way the game was going that I mean, it's hard to say 1 run could do it, but the way that game was turning out, it kind of felt like maybe 1 run was all they needed. Obviously, that did not turn out to be the case. So, we talked a little bit about the offense in the last episode and their lack of production, mostly in that Toronto series. You thought maybe the game on Friday, like we had talked about, or mostly the game in Toronto, that ninth inning, was going to be the turnaround, and it looked like that on Friday, putting up those runs, but then they went silent. So, um, do you think that's a fair assessment? Is that what we've seen so far, halfway through the month of September? A team that's put together really good starts, but sometimes the offense just isn't there.
Sure, I would say that Christopher Sanchez is no easygoing guy to face. He's been an all-star this year. He's a pretty good pitcher. We did hit Aaron Nola pretty well. Also, I would say in even in that Saturday game, the Phillies also played some good defense behind um, their pitching in the later innings. I think JD Martinez obviously had that home run ball where he was robbed. I think JD Martinez had some good at bats, but no results. But that's what good teams do. I think the Phillies are a good team. The Phillies have good pitching. We knew that. We knew before before this series started that we needed some good pitching to stay in ball games. We got it. Unfortunately, we didn't score enough. I also believe that the Phillies. I think the main issue with that Saturday game for me was not getting to Taiwan Walker because we know that Kekkering, Hoffman, and Estevez are all pretty tough to beat. So their main arms in the back end of their bullpen are definitely better overall than ours, I would say. So if you face those main guys and you are down in the later innings this year against the Philadelphia Phillies, it's not going to be easy. So for me, it's true. I think it's obvious with us facing some lesser pitchers in Toronto and we didn't hit well. It's starting to become more of a trend. But I also believe that what we're gonna see facing not bad pitchers in Washington or against Washington, I should say, but a little bit less good, I would say, than what the Phillies can offer, especially probably the bullpen of the Nationals. I don't know that for sure, but I bet that you have some more chances against their bullpen and should have some more chances. If that series also, lacks offense, I think it's definitely going to be a true assessment. But I need to wait for that one.
Yeah, you talk about the pitching against Washington, and we'll get into that later in the episode. But like you said, the Mets, did face good pitching. They were able to knock around Aaron Nola a little bit, but um, Christopher Sanchez is a good pitcher, and we've just seen when most of the time when they face good pitching, the offense has been silent, and there were some guys that looked like maybe they were turning things around, particularly JD Martinez with some really well struck balls, but he kept hitting it to the same damn park at the ballpark that and whether it was robbed or it just came up a little short, obviously disappointing to see. And you talk about that game on Saturday. Obviously, that was maybe the most frustrating or irritating one for some fans, just figuring the Mets got out to that 4-0 lead, and like I said, they weren't able to do much after that. And something we've talked about is the culture change, the change in the culture for the team, and obviously it's there. We've seen the change and whatnot, but I mean, you kind of look at the Phillies from their no bottom of the order, the 7, 8, 9 guys, and you're looking at them like, well, who the hell are these guys? I've never heard of Cal Stevenson before, or whatever. And then he goes out and makes tremendous plays. He gets big hits and whatnot. And it's just that obviously, you have to give the players credit for that for stuff like that. But I also think it has a lot to do with the culture that these teams have built, particularly the Phillies and the Braves. I mean, look at Whit Merrifield. He was with he was with the Phillies earlier. He wasn't doing a whole lot there. They end up moving it on from him, and now he's in Atlanta. He's getting big hits for them, and he's playing well. The same thing with Gio Urshela, who was having a bad year with the Tigers, and now he goes to the Braves, and he's doing really well. So, I mean, obviously, and the point I'm trying to make here is the Mets are, they have a. It's weird because like they have established that culture, but like they're also trying to, you know, I don't know the right way to phrase it. Like I guess it's you look at teams like the Phillies and the Braves, they've been there and done that. The Mets are still trying to get there and do that. So like I feel like there's just something that's why like you can see these guys from the Phillies come up and get these big at bats and get big hits and make big plays, and maybe some guys for the Mets just haven't done that yet because I don't know the I think you try kind of know what I'm trying to get at, but like I can't find the right words to describe it. Like the Mets are still trying to establish their culture while some of these other teams they're facing have their culture in place, I guess. I don't know if I'm articulating that correctly or properly, but I think you kind of know what I'm getting at with that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's not like that the Mets haven't done that this year. They had a terrible month of May, and since that, they have the best record in baseball. So you're not getting the best record in baseball for months um, without getting big moments from your 7, 8, and 9, or guys like Danny Young, or big outs from Reed Garrett, who was obviously um, not a big guy before this season. So, but yeah, I think we can say that the Braves and the Phillies. I think the Braves have done it for years. I think the Phillies for the last 3 years, but to me, it's more of an up and down organization. In my estimation, I think the only real organization that has done it probably for the last 25 years, I would say, maybe even more, is the Atlanta Braves, who obviously has won the most division titles without spending that much. So obviously they're doing something good. I think the Mets are on their way. I think this year, I said that to you in the chat as well. I think this year we didn't expect the Mets. At least I didn't. I thought we were contenders. We could be contenders. We could have exciting games in September. but I didn't see us as a playoff team. Then we had a terrible May, and then obviously we both were already talking about, hoping for next year, seeing some talented players and trading some guys away. And then all of a sudden they had a resurgent year, and they got to the spot where which I hoped for, honestly. I hoped maybe you get in, maybe you sneak in. That's what I said before the season, and hope you get red hot into the playoffs and do well. And that's what they're doing. So I don't necessarily see this as a terrible year. I see this more as a beginning of something we are already seeing. We had Severino who's coming up in injury plagued seasons and had an ERA over 6, and he did well with the Mets. We had Sean Manaea, who we added, who had like a 4.50, a good second half, but a 4.50 ERA, and he has been tremendous. Peterson, who before this year had his ups and downs years, has been tremendous this year. And I even think Quintana, although he has ups and downs this year, I think if you look at a 3.91 ERA, you definitely take that before the season started. So all those four guys have, in my estimation, at least not underperformed, but I think three of them have overperformed. And that's what the Braves have done for years. So we do see that this year. That's the point I'm trying to make. That the Mets do get good efforts from uh, not spending too much this offseason.
Yeah, I also wonder too with you look at teams like the Phillies and the Braves. You know, they have an established core, and the Mets have no guys that are part of the core. Obviously, Lindor is going to be here for a long time. Nimmo, um, we believe Francisco Alvarez, despite maybe the struggles he's had in the second half, is a core piece. Now you can put Mark Vientos in that conversation as well. Um, but with this team also, you mentioned some guys there like a Severino, a Manaya. We could put Pete Alonso in this category as well. JD Martinez. These are guys who are going to be free agents once the season comes to an end. And obviously, you can bring veteran guys in like a JD Martinez to help establish the culture and whatnot. But do you think there's a little bit of a I'm trying to think of the right word here. It's early in the morning for me, so sometimes my brain's not there, but you could say that all the time. Um, is there a little bit of a concern that maybe you bring guys in on 1 year deals to establish something, but then they're gone, and then because I don't think I mean, we believe that some of these guys we mentioned are probably likely to be gone, particularly JD Martinez. I don't think JD's coming back next year for this team. So do you think there's a little bit of something about uh, um, turning it over a bit, a roster turnover somewhat? I mean, what if Pete Alonso goes? We discussed that multiple times, like, so the Mets still have guys here that are going to be part of the future, but you're also, trying to fill other, that could be significant holes. Figuring maybe you're going to have a revamped rotation, maybe who knows, maybe there's someone new playing first base or third base next year, depending on what they do with Vientos or whatnot. So do you think there's also a little bit of that where I know this is maybe more off-season conversation than we're talking about the Phillies, but there are things that have come up, talking about this team. So, is there any worry with you about the just kind of some turnover from this team to next year and making sure that what they've established is still in place for next year with some guys who are maybe establishing that not being a part of the team?
0% concern for me. I think we have to trust David Stearns with that. I think that guy has done it for so many years with the Brewers, and that's what he did this year. I think prime example for the Brewers is Wade Miley, who didn't necessarily was a great pitcher, and he got to the Brewers, and every year with the Brewers has been tremendous. So there is something that Stearns knows, because it's not a coincidence that it works. It worked with the Brewers and it now worked with the Mets. And also, I think we had this conversation. It's not like the rotation next year, if it all goes right. But that's for every team. That's also for the Philadelphia Phillies. If they next year have Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Christopher Sanchez, they are in a good spot. But also those guys can get hurt. So that's for every team. Um, the Braves get, for example, Chris Sale, who has been oft injured, and all of a sudden he's not injured and pitching his ass off for Ronaldo Lopez. I think nobody expected that year out of him. So there are some organization and some GMs, and I think the Mets are building exactly what the Braves. I think mostly the Braves are building that they can get good years out of maybe less, um, less, no lesser names that you want in the off season. Um, so I have no concerns in that. I also think the Mets do have some money to spend to build maybe a better core, because if you compare the core of the Braves, Phillies, and Mets, I think what you said is true that the Mets have some kind of core, but I think the core isn't as good. I think I said that in probably April, May, or something like that. I had an whole thing about that. So listen to that episode or that short. I think there's a short somewhere on YouTube. So I believe our core, at least offensively, isn't as good as those teams' core. But that can change if you add a guy in free agency that's going to be part of your core. I think, for example, Bryce Harper is a free agent for the Phillies that they picked well on and is part of their core. While Kyle Schwarber the same, Ray Turner the same. So um, it's not necessarily it's a bought core, so to speak, for the Phillies. So we knew before this season that the Mets weren't able to buy their core. Next year they have some financial flexibility to buy some of their core.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point to be made, and um, to get it back on track against, I guess with this Philly series, I guess two things could lead into to another here, but we'll start with Lindor. I think it's a good place to start, and then we can transition to who's played shortstop the past couple games with Lindor's condition. Um, so Lindor tweaks his back Friday. They kind of just say, it's a day to day thing. We'll see. He sits out Saturday, um, and then Sunday comes around, and Mendoza before the game says, "No, we're going to see him take it. Let him swing in the cage, feel stuff out, get the treatment, and see how he feels, and we'll go from there with our lineup." Lindor's in the lineup, leading off, playing shortstop, plays 2 innings, gets one at bat, one chance in the field, and comes out of the game. So then Luis Angel Acuna, who played Saturday, comes in to fill in, and now Lindor is getting the imaging, and I think the they no obviously they said they were like, no, we're not concerned, whatever, stuff like that, but I feel like it doesn't with a guy like Lindor when he. I mean, we appreciate Lindor in his way of I want to play at 162. I'm going to do everything I can to play. Obviously, we all appreciate that. Um, but when you do that, you're not necessarily going to be telling the truth a lot of the time about how you feel. I I personally feel that this. I mean, he's getting the imaging now, so it is a concern. But even just the little minor tweaking, if they said, "Oh, we're not worried about it," like blah blah, blah, I think you still should be concerned. And I guess you know, um, I personally feel like they kind of downplayed the severity of this. I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, he's got a herniated disc, he's done whatever. But we know backs are very, but we know backs are really tricky. And you said that as well in the chat. Like they're, you could feel good one day, you feel bad the other day, something like that. So obviously you're gonna play it day by day, see how it goes. But to have this happen at this juncture in the season with the race they're in and whatnot, and we said this yesterday, we are talking about it, and we've said it on multiple episodes before. This team goes through Francisco Lindor. If Francisco Lindor is not in the lineup is not as potent. It gets some guys are more pitchable, I would say, without Lindor in there. And um, despite them saying they're not as concerned, whatever, I think there is legitimate reason to be concerned. And now, like I said, he's getting the imaging, so now they are a little concerned. But um, it's not a great situation at hand for the New York Mets.
No, no. First of all, I think after Friday, um, in my job, I also have moments where I tweak my back and then I think, oh, darn it. And then a few hours later, I feel nothing. So backs are tricky, but backs are tricky both ways. So you could feel very bad and it heals up on you quickly, or you can feel slightly bad, but it lingers. So I'm not necessarily sure if it was, downplaying it on purpose. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. I can't feel what Lindor felt at that moment. I don't know what Lindor and Mendoza said in the clubhouse. So I'm not 100% sure. But point is, right now, it obviously didn't feel as good as we hoped on Sunday, which is obviously a concern now, and that's true. And um, couldn't have been in a worse spot with facing difficult teams in a stretch run. On the other hand, injuries happen, and if your team is reliant on one player, then there's work to be done this off season.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that kind of goes back to what we talked about. Excuse me, I had to turn my mic off there for a second. I think it goes back to what you were saying about uh, finding a core, or adding to the core to make sure that where if one goes down, there's it's not a big significant loss, and you could argue maybe the Lindor thing shouldn't be as significant as it is, but some guys are not performing well at the moment. We look at Mark Vientos, who's definitely in a slump now. Lindor or Nimmo, unfortunately, this second half of the season hasn't been as productive as he was in the first half. And JD struck the ball well a couple times in Philadelphia, but overall he's been kind of in a slump. Obviously, Alvarez's second half, he runs into one, but then he kind of goes silent. We've talked about Alonso's struggles in big clutch situations with runners on base. So that's it's a concern. So when a guy like Lindor, who's been your best all around player and best run producer in a leadoff spot, is not there, it's going to be tough to come by to score runs, and we saw that yesterday. And I think the thing too is just how uncomfortable he looked in those two innings he played. Obviously, the at bat with the little sluggish coming out of the batter's box. I know it was just a routine ground ball, whatever. But we've seen Lindor, move well out of the box. He hustles, and then the throw the first. You could see him. He was kind of. It was weird too because it was Trey Turner who hit the ground ball, if I remember correctly, and we know that's a guy who can fly. And Lindor was kind of building up the momentum to get the ball across the diamond to Alonso, and it kind of took off. So those were some kind of signs like, man, this does not look good. He does not look, like he's 100% out there. So, I like we said, this is a bit of a concern that maybe that they're not saying publicly, but I think it is a little bit of a concern.
I would say with backs, you also, if you have some, I've gone, I threw my back out. That's how you say it, right? And the back thing after when you throw your back out is moving, 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 move your back. But because you threw your back out at some point, um, you're gonna walk tentatively. So you're gonna not use your back because you were worried that you throw your back out again. And to me, that felt a little bit like Lindor was doing from where, so a bit upright, so maybe it's just him having that feeling in his back that it's a bit of that weird back feeling where when there's something that's not 100%, but you have to go through that before it gets better. And that's a really weird thing in your mind. I think Lindor probably has some aches in there, but maybe this is the first time that he has that much pain in his back. It's a weird feeling to know how you should handle it on the field because you're still tentative. So maybe it's that. Maybe that's maybe a little bit my own, uh, how you say that, experience with some back issues I had earlier. Um, so maybe not. Like I said, we don't know what Lindor feels, but to me, it reminded me a little bit of how I handled my back in the early days after I threw my back out, which wasn't the best ways to go. So that's that's a thought or a maybe a potential how it is with Lindor.
Yeah, no, obviously, backs. There are no good backs in my family, so I'm definitely going to be destined to have a bad back in my
But
life.
you
And
know
it's
that feeling. So you know that feeling,
yes,
the tentative feeling in your hand that you're rocking a little bit tentatively,
yep,
which you shouldn't do, and you know you shouldn't do, but you do it anyways.
yep. So obviously, the Lindor thing bears watching. There's no news yet on the imaging. We probably won't know until it gets closer to the first pitch of the game tonight against the Washington Nationals. But if the imaging shows something, then there's cause for concern. No doubt about that.
And
Despite their
probably into the regular season, I
yeah,
would say. It's
despite
really going to be.
despite their current positioning right now, if you lose Lindor for an extended period of time, whether it's just a week or 2 days, whatever, it's any missed time is not good for this
Yeah.
team when it comes to Lindor. But with him being out, and that there was well, I shouldn't phrase it this way because I know you did we disagree on the semantics of it, but with this Lindor situation, it's given a chance for Luis Angel Acuna to get some playing time as he was called up late Friday. He made his major league debut Saturday, picked up 2 hits. He came in for Lindor on Sunday after Lindor left the game. And obviously, this is someone that was highly touted when he first came over from the Texas Rangers from Max Scherzer. He performed well in Double A Binghamton, with his couple months there. And obviously, he's been in Triple A Syracuse this year, has had his moments. He's had good stretches. Sometimes he kind of falls into a lull. Uh, but he's up with the big club now. Uh, Picked up 2 hits on Saturday. Took an 0 for yesterday, but a lot of people did yesterday. So Um, anyway, just what have you seen from Acuna? We know he can play a little bit, a couple different positions, all up the middle. Actually, center field, second base, shortstop. He's played shortstop since being called up. Just your overall first impressions with Luis Angel Acuna.
I think in the perfect world, he wouldn't have the job he is obviously have now. I think the Mets saw him as a guy who they hope that they could give a start here and there, maybe, but overall be a guy who is probably gonna be the backup if Lindor is healthy, because in the playoffs, because Eddie Alvarez isn't eligible. Um, I I I I think it shows, although he had a very good at bat against Carlos Estevez in the ninth inning. Um, I think he does have a lot of still has his fair share of swing and miss in his game, and his inability to draw walks is something that I hope he can do better, because he's not necessarily a power hitter like his brother is. Um, Maybe he grows into that, but I doubt that. So I see him as a guy who makes contact, who tries to use his speed and play very good defense at every position he plays. Um, I think his better ball skills could, could still improve. Like I said, a little less swing and miss. And I think it did show, especially on that Sunday game. Um, so to me, he's not there yet. But obviously, we see the talent. And right now, he's going to have some starts to show himself. I think he did made a nice play on a pop up in the first game, at the end of of his debut. And he made a nice play yesterday up the middle where he showed a lot of range. Obviously, it's not necessarily Lindor, but I shouldn't expect anybody to be a Lindor. But what he did on the field was was very good. So I don't think you lose that much. Obviously, you lose something there, but not that much. Um, but obviously, with the bat, he's a different type of hitter. He's a guy in a perfect lineup. When you build your core with the Mets, I think he's that ninth guy and that ninth batter with good defense and some speed and hopefully a little bit better on base percentage and and not a lot of power. And so that would be for me the perfect spot for him and a perfect lineup for him. Right now, the Mets are not in a spot that it's a perfect lineup for Luis and Alan Cunha, I would say.
Talk about working on being more patient at the plate and trying to get a higher on base percentage and whatnot. And you say all that, and the first person that comes to mind from a Mets prospect standpoint with those qualifications is Ronnie Mauricio. That was his big kind of a flaw, if you will, was that he necessarily didn't draw a lot of walks and whatnot. Not saying Luis Angel Acuna and Ronnie Mauricio are the exact same player,
Um,
but is there a little bit of a are there some similarities between the two? Obviously, maybe they kind of are similar athletic skills, but maybe Acuna is just has the lesser power of the two.
yeah, but I think that is a pretty important part because Ronnie Mauricio can add more value because he can hit 20-25 bombs per year. So for me, the on base percentage on Luis and El Acuna as a batter is more important than uh, for Ronnie Mauricio. But good point, Ronnie Mauricio. We should have him next year, which obviously it's a huge help to have that guy uh, on your 40 man on your active roster.
Yeah, it makes things I don't want to say complicated in the off season, but makes things more interesting, I guess, from a roster construction standpoint. Obviously,
Yeah.
Mauricio is going to have options and whatnot, but if you're kind of maybe leaving third base perhaps as an open competition, depending on if some people move on or, if someone's got to move from third base to first base because the first baseman's gone, or if the guy's moving from third base to the full time DH role, then it creates a spot at third base. Do you want to have an in-house competition between some guys? Do you want to go bring a veteran guy in? Like I said, we've had a lot of more off-season kind of discussion things today, but sometimes regular season games will spark things like that. It's particularly at this time of the season when things are potentially winding down. So, um, you know,
Well, I'm not going to answer that. So we're gonna can continue without. We still can talk about that during the off season.
right? I'm sure, and I would bet a lot of money on it that we probably will, and be talking about stuff like that. So, overall, main point of this whole conversation that we've had for half an hour. The Mets lose 2 of 3 at Philadelphia. It's a disappointing series, with just some things that have transpired, how the games played out, and how some guys performed and got hurt, and it just happens at such an inconvenient time with what is going on currently in the National League wildcard race. You thought maybe you were going to get some help this weekend, despite losing those 2 games with the Phillies because the Braves are playing the Dodgers and the MVP Shohei Ohtani. He really showed up in this series, particularly those first 2 games. Scumbag. Um, and the Braves took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers. Did they get a little? I guess you could maybe say a little help from the Brewers, but the Milwaukee lost yesterday, and they were in extra innings. So, um, not the Mets currently are 2 behind Arizona now. As we look at the wild card standings as a whole, the Mets are tied for that third spot with the Atlanta Braves, thanks to the Dodgers yesterday. So the Mets are still in it. It just the way the weekend went, just kind of feels ugly, feels yucky. But they're still in it. We'll just see how things happen this last, I guess technically less than 2 weeks of the season because I guess there's 13 days left in the regular season now, so less than 2 weeks. We'll see how things play out. But with that being said, I the you know the major league season is winding down. The minor league season is winding down. I believe Double A Binghamton is done for the year. Syracuse, not a whole lot of action left. So these minor league minutes are becoming more a minute long, but becoming more valuable for you to listen to because it's going to be a while till you get another one.
Yes, definitely. So let's get it going. Maybe we can get it on in a minute. I doubt it. Binghamton, Thursday, tremendous outing for Nolan McLean, who went six scoreless, allowing just two hits, two walks with six strikeouts. McLean has a 0.82 ERA in two September starts. Junior Santos and Josh Hagika finished the 9-0 shutout. Clifford hit his 18th in Double a 3-1 homer as he went 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs. Jeremiah Jackson also homered his 19th in a 2 for 5 2 RBI day. Parada and Constragra had two hit days in the win. Friday, Stanley Constragra went 3 for 4 with a double and a run scored in a 6-3 loss. Clifford had the only extra base hit, a double, as he drove in a run. Saturday, comeback fell just short after the Rumble Ponies scored two and had to go ahead run at the plate in a 4-2 loss. Kevin Parado, who shown some life lately, homered for his 12th of the year. Dakota Hawkins got the start, allowing 3 runs, 2 earned over 5 innings. And the final game for Binghamton, a shutout win after a 4-run ninth for the Ponies. Parada got the scoring started in the ninth inning with another home run. His up and down season continues. Great July, bad August, great September. Matt Rudick added a 3-run bomb later in the inning. It was enough for the Rumble Ponies pitching. Luis Moreno went three scoreless, allowing one hit, one walk with 1K. Hernani Ventura kept this double-A scoreless streak going with three scoreless on his own. He allowed two hits, one walk while striking out three. JT Shook struck out three over two, and Joshua Cornelli closed it out. Cornelli ended with a 1.13 ERA over 16 innings in Binghamton. And the final record for the Binghamton Rumble Ponies is 69-67. Syracuse, Thursday, Justin Jarvis got the start, and unsurprisingly, he struggled, allowing 5 runs over two and a third in an 8-1 loss. JT Schwartz hit his third home run in AAA for the only Syracuse run. But luckily, finally, a good outing from a Syracuse starting pitcher on Friday. Dominic Hamill went five scoreless, allowing four hits, two walks while striking out four. It was a close game until the seventh when the Syracuse Mets scored 10 runs in an 11-0 win. Yolmer Sanchez homered to lead off the game. He went 2 for 4 with 5 RBIs in the win, also hitting a triple. Grant Hardwick, Adcock, I can't remember his first name, Kyle Crick, and Trey McLaughlin all struck out two in their scoreless inning. The Saturday game, the Mets scored 19 runs without hitting a home run. Wyatt Young drove in four in a 2 for 4 day. Austin Allen, JT Schwartz, and Jose Azosca drove in three in the win. Only hitter without an RBI was Hayden Singer, but he went 3 for 5 with a double. Yonger Sanchez had three hits with two doubles and an RBI. Schwartz had the only other extra base hit as he hit one double. Jonathan Pintaro allowed 8 base runners over 4 but didn't allow a run with a 6 strikeout. Suber struggled again, allowing 3 runs over his inning. Orsi, however, was great, striking out 5 over 2, lowering his Syracuse ERA to 2.95. And Sunday, Austin Allen and Carlos Cortez homered, but the Syracuse bullpen allowed 4 runs in a 4-3 loss in the ninth inning. And that was mostly on Shitao Fujinami, who has been great lately but struggled on Sunday. Blake Tidwell had a much needed good outing following Hamill with 5 scoreless. He allowed just 3 hits, 2 walks while striking out 4.
Well, it wasn't a minute, but still pretty close.
It was some good information, so it was a little bit longer.
Wow. Well, it's going to be a lot shorter next time because it's just going to be Syracuse. So.
Yes, yes, and it depends on how some of those arms do in Syracuse.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about
Good
that.
weekend, though. Good
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah. Pretty good weekend. Pretty good weekend. Well, um, hopefully the Mets next couple days are good as they have a 3-game series with the Washington Nationals, the final homestand of the 2024 season. It gets started tonight at 7:10, where Sean Manaea takes the mound against Jake Irvin. for the Nationals. We know Jake Irvin has pitched well against the Mets this season at one point, so we know he's no walk in the park. Um, Tuesday is going to be Tyler McGill getting the start for the Mets, coming off that nice start against the Toronto Blue Jays. He's going to go up against Mitchell Parker for the Washington Nationals. I believe I said that's a 7:10 first pitch. And then it wraps up Wednesday, another 7:10 first pitch. Jose Quintana takes the mound for the Mets. He is going up against DJ Hers for the Washington Nationals. So be a interesting series with two lefties going for Washington, two lefties going for the Mets. And this is a crucial series for the Mets. Uh, so they are going to need some big performances from some guys, particularly if Francisco Lindor is not going to be playing in some of these games. That's still TBD. But we will now do our player of the series predictions. I get the pitcher, you get the batter. I think we both did pretty well with our picks last week, with Quintana's nice outing for you and Tyrone Taylor hitting a huge home run at that time for the Mets. So now we flip the script here, and like I said, I get the pitcher, you get the hitter. So we are a pitching podcast, and you always say my pitching uh, guys that I pick are boring because it's the same people over and over again, particularly David Peterson. Well, David Peterson is not pitching in this series. So I'm going to go maybe more the outside the box guy of the guys I just listed. I'm going to go with Tyler McGill to build off what he did in Toronto.
Great job, Andrew. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. That's a terrific pick by you. Tyler McGill's been pretty good in his last stint. So good job, Andrew, not going. Yeah, you couldn't go with Dave Peterson. So yeah, then it narrows it down for you. Then you have to do something else, which if you are an autistic person, you would have a lot of trouble with that. But luckily, you aren't. So you avoid it or adjust it really well on the fly there. Um, better, I think I've mentioned him a couple of times. I'm going the same way as I did when I last picked a batter. That was Brandon Nimmo, who I said is going to hit a home run because he hit a couple of home runs foul. Unfortunately, he waited until the Philly series to do that instead of helping me out. So, but I'm going to try it again. I said that JD Martinez has come close to a couple of home runs, going his natural right center field. I know that Citi Field is a good park for him to hit right center field home runs, partly the reason why he picked the Mets over the Giants. And he found or refound that stroke in Philadelphia, unfortunately, not to any results. But I think he's going to get some results against the Nationals in his home ballpark. So I'm going to go with JD Martinez.
All right, there you have it. That is who we are going with in this series against the Washington Nationals. And I think we're going to just wrap things up now as we thank you for listening to episode number 41 of the Queen's Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creatives. So we thank Corne for joining us as well. And hopefully we have some good things to talk about next time.
Yeah, depending on when next time is.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But this has been the Queen's Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creative. Make sure to follow us on social media, Twitter and Facebook. Just search the Queen's Connection. And also make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen, Spotify, YouTube. We would greatly appreciate that. So thank you so much for listening and enjoy this 3-game series with the Washington Nationals.